taking the stage. The Democratic National Convention kicks off in Milwaukee. We examine the road former Vice President Joe Biden took to be the presumptive nominee. White House response, what President Donald Trump is saying about the DNC. And a plea for peace. Pope Francis weighs in on the bloodshed in Belarus. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, August 17th, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. The Democratic National Convention begins today in Milwaukee. It will end later this week with the likely nomination of Joe Biden as the party's presidential candidate. The convention theme is American Unity. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, most of the events will be done by video. Prior to the coronavirus crisis, around 50,000 people were expected to attend the convention. Joining me now with a preview of tonight's Democratic National Convention kickoff is Philip Crowther, international affiliate reporter for the Associated Press. Philip, welcome back. Always good to see you. So tonight will look a lot different than what we're used to seeing. That's, of course, because of the coronavirus pandemic. How do the Democrats plan on recreating that energy that's usually generated at this event?
That's a very good question. Where do you get that energy from? That these conventions are pretty much synonymous with essentially the crowd. The delegates feed off the speakers, the politicians on stage, the musicians, the stars, they feed off the crowd and vice versa. None of that can really happen this time around, though there is some significant star power, at least star power in the politics arena. You'll be hearing and seeing during this four-day convention from all of the political stars of the Democratic Party, of course from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, but also from Hillary and Bill Clinton, from Barack and Michelle Obama, and so many others, stars of the Democratic Party, from the left wing, from the more centrist wing. That's kind of what this convention is supposed to be about, uniting the party, if you will. Now, at best, this is going to be a convention that will energize Democratic Party voters, who, of course, will be watching from home. This is a virtual online convention that they can follow on their computers or on their TV screens. There is nothing to be seen in person. That's at best. At worst, this is going to look like an above average Zoom conference call, but with some pretty good production values, if you will. This is a risky thing to do, of course, during a pandemic. But then again, Republicans are faced with the same problem next week when they stage their convention.
Well, tonight's theme is We the People. Let's talk a little bit more about that and what are some of the issues Democrats are expected to lay out?
Well, Democrats really are insisting that this convention, particularly tonight, this opening night, is not about we, the Democrats, it's about we, the people. And they also say this is not all about Trump. This is about what the Democratic Party stands for. So what they've been saying is we'll be hearing from average Americans, if you will, as convoluted as that term can be, meaning we'll be hearing from people who, according to Democrats at least, have suffered during the Trump administration. And I think what the Democratic Party will concentrate on here are three concurrent crises in the United States and how Americans are dealing with those and how they at least believe Americans would deal with them better during a Biden administration. Those three crises being, of course, the coronavirus outbreak that isn't getting any better, the economic crisis that's already here and that will presumably get worse over the next few months, and then, of course, racial injustice in the United States, made so clear during the protests over the last few months across the country. I think those will be the three main subject matters, though the overarching theme tonight might be we the people. The symbol that the Democratic Party want to bring across is that this is a united Democratic Party against Donald Trump.
Philip, you mentioned some of the speakers that will be speaking this week. Who will we hear from tonight, and are there any surprises?
Well, we already mentioned that this is going to be all about the unity in the Democratic Party, and that really is something that Democrats will try and bring across here tonight by hearing from those on the left wing of the party, those that you might consider more centrist and the very popular stars of the Democratic Party. You'll be hearing from Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, for example, he who came so close to beating Joe Biden to the nomination in the first place during this long primary process. The keynote speech is from former First Lady Michelle Obama, probably the most popular politician, essentially, in the United States, maybe even the most popular person, almost certainly the most popular member of the Democratic Party. Now, there are other interesting names who will be appearing, again, virtually, online, all of them exclusively during this convention. Here's one, for example, the New York Governor, Andrew Cuomo, who became so popular during his state's reaction to the coronavirus pandemic. He will be speaking tonight. And then a very interesting one is John Kasich. He's the former governor of Ohio and a Republican. He's not the only Republican, by the way, who will be speaking at this convention tonight. That might be one other theme. Democrats are trying to tell Republicans and Trump voters that it is okay to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. A hard thing to do, a hard thing to convince people of, but that is one of the things the Democrats want to bring across here tonight.
Okay, Philip Crowther, international affiliate reporter for the Associated Press. Always good to speak with you.
Pleasure.
When former Vice President Joe Biden becomes the Democratic Party's official nominee for president on Thursday, he will complete a dream that was first launched more than 3 decades ago. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, Tracy, earlier this year, Joe Biden rose from the very bottom early on in the early voting during February to effectively claim the nomination by the end of March. It's a dream come true for the 77-year-old Catholic who first pushed for a presidential campaign as far back as 1980.
At this time, 33 years ago, Joe Biden's run for the White House was coming to an end.
The next president of the United States has a phenomenal opportunity.
Part of the reason, accusations of plagiarism and criticism for embellishing his academic record.
My year, I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only need 123 credits, and I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
In 1987, conservatives criticized the former Senate Judiciary Chairman for politicizing Supreme Court justice nominations and for blocking President Reagan's nominee, Robert Bork, from a spot on the High Court.
Nomination of Robert Bork is reported to the floor of the United States Senate with a negative recommendation of 9-5.
Fast forward to 2019, and Joe Biden's presidential campaign was off to a rough start. With more than 20 other Democratic hopefuls, he struggled at times in debates and was caught in the crossfire of rivals, including his now running mate, Senator Kamala Harris.
The pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies last year alone profited $72 billion. And that is on the backs of American families. And under your plan, status quo, you do nothing to hold the insurance companies to task.
But one by one, his opposition dropped out. And Thursday, the Democratic Party will officially name his as their candidate for president.
Team Biden has said that it plans to go after the Catholic and evangelical vote, a group that has overwhelmingly supported President Trump in the 2016 election. So how does Joe Biden's views fare with the Catholic Church and the teachings of the Catholic Church? I'll take a closer look at that later on this week. Tracy?
Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting from Capitol Hill tonight. Thank you again. President Donald Trump touts his ability to create jobs and boost the economy during a visit to Wisconsin and Minnesota today. He also repeated his warning about universal mail-in ballots, calling them, quote, a very dangerous thing. This as lawmakers are told to head back to D.C. in a showdown with the president over the post office. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
Tracy, it's no surprise President Donald Trump is cranking up his political travels this week, heading to Minnesota and Wisconsin today. He barely won Wisconsin last time. It's to give viewers and voters some counter-programming. Now tomorrow he visits Arizona, then on Thursday it's off to Pennsylvania.
In Minnesota, President Donald Trump rallies his supporters.
And the primary competitor, Joe, he's in his basement. He just doesn't come out. They don't ask him questions.
Earlier, before leaving the White House, the president told reporters universal mail-in is, in his words, fraught with fraud.
We have to be very, very careful. We have a very big election coming up.
With November 3rd right around the corner.
And I want to make sure the election is not stolen, and so does everybody else. And I'm sure both sides feel that way. So we have to be very careful with this universal mail-in ballot.
But Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has called the House back into session to vote on a bill called Delivering for America Act to stop the Postal Service from implementing any new changes to operations. Democrats fear voter suppression.
Because one, we need funding for the post office. Two, this guy, Postmaster General, is literally not just jerking around voters, he is literally upending our entire mail system.
And when the president was asked if he told the Postmaster General to slow the mail.
No, not at all. Wouldn't do that. No, I have encouraged everybody, speed up the mail, not slow the mail. And I also want to have a post office that runs without losing billions and billions of dollars a year.
Democratic lawmakers now want the Postal Service to testify on Capitol Hill next week. For now, the agency says it will stop removing those blue mailboxes.
Also, we're learning tonight that this Friday afternoon, President Trump may hold a small funeral service for his brother Robert, who passed away this past weekend. The president says his brother loved the country very much and that it would be an honor to have the service here. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Coming up, lawmakers hear testimony about China's treatment of the Uyghur religious minority. As the Democratic convention gets underway, current and former party officials are calling for the Democratic National Committee to moderate its official position on abortion. More than 100 Democrats affiliated with the pro-life Democrats for Life of America signed onto a letter which reads in part, "We are concerned that many Democratic leaders support policies on abortion that are radically out of line with public opinion." Joining me now on Skype, he is one of the signatories of that letter, State Senator Katrina Jackson, Democrat from Louisiana. Senator, welcome back. Always great to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Hope you're doing well.
I am. God has been blessing us. Even in the midst of Corona, we are up and running and staying safe.
Wonderful. Well, as a Democratic politician who has authored pro-life legislation, what are your major concerns when it comes to the Democratic Party's platform position on abortion as it stands right now?
It's not inclusive, and that's my major concern, is that the party that I joined when I was 18, the party of my parents, was a big tent party, and there was no hard line drawn in the sand regarding abortion. There was always an understanding that Democrats were very diverse in their beliefs regarding abortion and life, and so that's the party I signed up for. Here recently, it seems that there's been a hard line drawn in the sand for the last 8+ years that says that a Democrat has to be pro-choice. But every poll that you see and everything that you read really reveals that a large number of Democrats are pro-life.
I know the letter that you signed goes on to talk about reintroducing the conscious language from 2000. Remind us what that says, and how do you think that will be helpful now?
Well, the conscious language from 2000 recognized, the way it was, written, it recognized that we were diverse in our beliefs in the party regarding abortion, and that we were inclusive of both pro-life and pro-choice Democrats.
I know you also addressed, I'm sorry, Senator, go on.
Oh, no, go ahead, because what I was saying was, and so it allowed for everyone to have a place in the party.
Yeah, and I know you addressed today's virtual pro-life caucus. What's your message to other pro-life Democrats working to restore a culture of life?
My message is this, is that the culture of life is extremely important, and people often ask me why I'm still a member of the Democratic Party. I tell them, and I tell everyone this, and even advocates, that there are a large amount of advocates that are Democrats who are life advocates who depend on us. And so the fight to remain in this party and to be recognized and not to be excluded is a very important one, because a large number of Democrats around the United States who identify as pro-life. And I would tell them to keep fighting.
Senator, anything else you'd like to say to our viewers upon the Democratic National Convention?
Yes, that please recognize that when you fight for life, there's various things that you fight for For me, I fight for life from the womb to the tomb. And in doing so, what I recognize is this, that everything that we're praying for, every illness, every sickness, everything that we're looking for a cure, a plan for, comes through the womb of a woman, because we're all birthed through the womb of a woman, and that every life is important. And that when you fight for choice, you're saying that your own life was a choice for someone else. And I don't think anyone really realizes that in their message, that when we fight for life, we're saying that all lives are important and that everyone has something to contribute to this world. And we don't have the choice to identify who contributes and who doesn't. That's God's plan.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
State Senator Katrina Jackson, Democrat from Louisiana. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And just a reminder, EWTN News Nightly will have coverage all week from the Democratic National Convention. And tomorrow night, speakers include former President Bill Clinton and Dr. Jill Biden. Wednesday is vice presidential pick Kamala Harris and former President Barack Obama. And Thursday, we hear from the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, Joe Biden. And in other news tonight, House lawmakers were briefed today on the tactics the Chinese government uses to suppress religious practices.
The goal here is to change how people identify themselves. They want people to stop thinking of themselves as of a certain ethnicity or culture first, and have them think of themselves as a PRC citizen first.
Also testifying in the briefing, Maya Wang from Human Rights Watch said Chinese government authorities are using technology to track their citizens at checkpoints beyond facial recognition. She says the systems also pulls data off of mobile phones to identify activity they consider to be disloyal to the communist regime, activity as simple as using a VPN to access a website across a firewall. She says Chinese authorities have also forced Tibetan monks and nuns into internment camps. Up next, an update on the fight against the coronavirus crisis. Plus, Pope Francis reminds the faithful of the importance of the Virgin Mary. China is criticizing President Donald Trump's executive order on the popular video sharing app TikTok. China's foreign ministry says the order is, quote, bullying and a blatant denial of fair competition principles that the U.S. has always advocated. President Trump on Friday ordered TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, to sell its U.S. assets, saying that there is evidence that TikTok spies for the Chinese military.
8월 16일 0시 기준
South Korea's health minister says that there were 267 new cases of COVID-19 reported yesterday, and almost all of them are in and around the capital of Seoul. He also says the government is taking the increase as, quote, very seriously. The sharp rise is the biggest spike since early March.
Alors, la semaine dernière, 574 cas.
In Belgium, officials are announcing a drop in COVID-19 cases for the first time in over a month. And although new cases continue, they suggest the pandemic may have peaked. Brussels announced last week that masks are now mandatory in public. Catholic bishops in Zimbabwe are accusing the government of abusing human rights. The country is mired in an economic and political crisis. In a pastoral letter that was read at all Sunday masses, the bishop said people in Zimbabwe face deepening poverty, food insecurity, and human rights abuses. Pope Francis celebrated the solemnity of the Assumption of Mary on Saturday with a reminder the Blessed Virgin joins us on every step of our journey here on earth.
Ma per conquistare la patria di lassù, che è per sempre.
The Holy Father also reminded the faithful not to focus on achieving material success and conquering the secular world. Instead, we should set our eyes to heaven and focus on what God wants from us. And with the help of Mary, we will reach our true homeland. Yesterday, the Holy Father weighed in on the unrest in Belarus.
Continuo a pregare per il Libano e per le altre situazioni drammatiche nel mondo.
At his weekly talk to pilgrims at the Vatican, the Holy Father calls for dialogue to end the bloodshed following the government's crackdown on protesters against the landslide victory of President Alexander Lukashenko. Andrea Galeoducci, Vatican analyst for EWTN News, joins us now from Rome. Andrea, always good to see you. So what else did Pope Francis say about the situation in Belarus?
Well, Pope Francis spoke of the situation in Belarus yesterday at Sunday Angelus, and he asked for justice and dialogue in Belarus, and he entrusted the nation to the care of Mary. We know that Belarusians are very devoted to the Virgin Mary, so it's kind of an important message for them.
Is the church in that country, are they taking any action to try and stop the violence?
Well, we know that the churches in Belarus on August 13th, they had a march for peace. It was a sort of guidelines for all the other manifestations, I would say. It was a march for peace that gathered Orthodox and Catholics and other Christian confessions and other religions all together, a sort of procession more than a march for peace. You know, the protesters were thousands, but we can say that the marchers were dozens, and they went peacefully through the city. They just showed how things could be done. They don't want riots, they don't want reactions by the government as it happened. And so this is what they did. They're just trying to give an example and to be close to the population.
I know that you spoke to the Archbishop of Minsk today. What did he have to say about the situation there?
Yes, I spoke with Archbishop Kondrusiewicz this morning. I had a phone call with him. He told me that the situation is complicated. I asked him if it was... when he thought how long he thought things were going to last. And he said that it's impossible to say, but his bigger preoccupation is that there are no riots because he doesn't want reactions. He also wrote a letter to President Lukashenko a couple of days ago, in which he asked the president not to react strongly, and he said that people are asking for truth, so it's good to have truth response. He also said that it's a difficult situation because there was a shutdown of the internet connection. So for 3 days they've been a little in a hole with no information from the outside beyond the information from the opposition. So now internet was back, but there is a lack of information on what's happening on the ground, even in Belarus.
Andrea, what did the Holy Father say in the address yesterday?
Well, as I said, the Holy Father just spoke about justice and reconciliation. He asked for that in Belarus. He mentioned just 2 or 3 lines, but it was important to do that. Actually, the Holy See cannot be so much involved because there are a sort of many problems on the ground in Belarus. Belarus is the gate to Europe, and it's a gate for ecumenical relations as well. But we know that the Orthodox Church in Belarus is not an autocephalous Orthodox Church. They don't have a patriarch, they have a metropolitan. And the Patriarch of Belarus is the Patriarch of Moscow. So it means that they have to be very careful in what they do because religious things can get political very easily.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for your time. We always appreciate you coming on. Andrea Galeoducci, Vatican analyst for EWTN News. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.